The love of football peaks every 4 years. The anticipation and battle on the pitch outshines every other event on the globe, and yet, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar would be built on the lives of tens of thousands of dead men. What horrible truths taint the World Cup in Qatar? Well, what do you think about slavery? Yes, legalized slavery. Why don't we start at the beginning? The dark truth behind Qatar 2022 takes us all the way back to Switzerland on December 2nd, 2010. The president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, made the announcement that shocked the whole world. And among that list of 5 competing nations were Japan, Australia, South Korea, the United States, and Qatar. Somehow, the body in charge of FIFA chose the one country that caused a massive uproar, Qatar. And not because they were in the Middle East. Nope, because first of all, their weather conditions are insane. So imagine running at full speed under a scorching sun that's pushing 50 degrees Celsius. There's nothing as unattractive as seeing our favourite legends on the pitch passing out from heat stroke and panting like their lives were on the line. But if you want to be fair, maybe they have equipment and facilities for Messi and Ronaldo to come in and kill things grand style, right? Wrong. As of the time of the decision in 2010, Qatar had 0 facilities whatsoever, and this is no exaggeration. No stadiums, no training infrastructure, not enough hotels, and not enough airports. So the uproar led to so many questions. Questions like, why are we hosting the World Cup in the middle of a deadly summer in a country that doesn't have a stadium? Well, when an insane situation has a super wealthy, super corrupt monarch, Sheikh Tamim Thani, in the thick of things, there's only one conclusion. Wheels were oiled, money exchanged hands, and a fat, meaty handshake has endangered the lives of athletes that we hold dear. There were allegations that our beloved FIFA had benefited from a $400 million deal with Al Jazeera, Qatar's state TV station. The offer was made just 21 days before FIFA made their decision, with an extra $100 million top-up should Qatar succeed. And that might sound like a bribe to anybody, but FIFA denies it had any influence on their decision. I mean, it's just $500 million. Apparently that's not enough money to make humans change their minds. And yet, corruption is just the tip of the iceberg. It only gets worse. So the year is 2022, and Qatar has a legalized slavery system. It's called the kafala system. And I'm not talking about the 9 to 5, go home and slam into your couch while watching TV, then sleep in a sweet bed after a hot bath, all the time complaining about your horrible employers. No, not that kind of slavery. I'm talking about being trapped in a foreign country miles away from home, unable to see your family, unable to leave, unable to even have a bed. And when you're tired, your lunch break is to just slump into the ground, pass out, and be left for dead.
In a shocking revelation, reports suggest that more than 6,500 migrant workers from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have died in Qatar since it won the right to host the World Cup 10 years ago.
Under the kafala system, private people and companies are allowed to own people, work them to death, and then put them in jail on a whim. And if anybody were to ask questions...
Okay.
So here's how Qatar's labour system works. Slavers approach poor citizens of countries like India, Nepal and Bangladesh with beautiful promises of riches. Luring them with numbers that they can only dream about, then they sponsor their entry into Qatar, a one-way trip, all expense paid, to a literal hell on earth, only to return home in a body bag or in a tin case. The victims of their kafala system are kept in inhumane prisons with horrible toilets under temperatures that can rise to 50 degrees Celsius. No access to social security, no labour unions, no health benefits, and in some cases, they aren't allowed to have breaks.
Sometimes I feel like I'm in prison.
They're forced to bear these conditions on a salary of $1 to $2 an hour, if they get paid at all, that is. By the time the World Cup was rolling around, a lot of migrant workers who were attached to the company responsible for constructing the stadium had not been paid for a year. With horrible heat and long hours of work, they have to survive on nothing but bread and water. Basic meals aren't provided, and these men lack the resources for a proper meal. This makes it impossible to accomplish even the most basic reasons for leaving their home countries. They can't even send a cent back to their families. So you'd be tempted to ask, why don't they just leave and go home? Well, they might have if their sponsor didn't have full control over their travelling and residency visa. This means they can't transfer jobs, enter or end any employment, nor are they allowed to leave the country without their sponsor's permission. Leaving the place of employment provided by said sponsor is a crime punishable by imprisonment. If using and disposing of people against their will isn't slavery, I don't know what is. And because of a couple $100 million, FIFA made the miserable lives of these men impossible to live, being pushed at neck-breaking speed and forced beyond human limits to build stadiums, roads, hotels, and airports just in time for the beloved World Cup. Here's the result of hellfire-level heat, malnutrition, unsanitary living conditions, and not enough rewards for your labour. 6,500 men have succumbed to the pressure. 6,000 too many, some of whom died by natural causes, often attributed to acute heart or respiratory failure. Not all deaths are recorded, and these are clearly not natural causes. This number of dead men is caused by the horrors of the situation they live in and the environment of the country that they're forced to stay in. And worse still, there are usually no autopsies and no medical explanation behind these classifications, just a tin coffin and an all-expense-paid trip back home to be buried. People heard about this inhumane practice and protested, but FIFA ignored it all. Despite Qatar assuring the world that it would rectify its slavery system, nothing has been done to mitigate the suffering of these migrant workers. Added to Qatar's crimes against humanity, it's also committed grievous crimes against die-hard fans of football. Here are some rules they imposed for the 2022 World Cup. No horns, no smoking, no perfumes, no drunkenness in public places, no gay people, and no signs that depict religion, ideology, or politics. For the second biggest event after the Olympics, you'd think Qatar has no business hosting the World Cup. And yet, it seems the big players are sitting at a game of chess, playing leisurely with the lives of thousands of less fortunate people in our society. Which brings us to the final question: why? Why is Qatar and its ruling family going through all of that stress? Why are they sacrificing all of those lives? Why the desperation to host the World Cup? The answer is simple: money. With thousands of fans flocking to support their favourite teams, hosting the World Cup is a month packed with money-making opportunities. Newly built pubs and bars allows them to charge £11 for a beer, and brand new hotels are geared to charge £9,000 for accommodations, with suites that cost up to £1.8 million. All that corruption and lies just so they can make millions off the muffled screams of more than 6,500 dead slaves, producing a World Cup that's not inclusive of women, the LGBT, activists, or basically anyone that's not filthy rich. I have to give it to Qatar. Way to turn a beautiful game ugly. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, or check out our previous videos by clicking here.